From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
To call Rhode Island unfriendly territory for Republicans is an understatement. The GOP hasn't won a statewide or federal race in the state since 2006, but the party has fresh Republican leadership at the General Assembly, hoping to gain traction and seats in the legislature. Is there a path to a bigger political footprint for the GOP in deep blue Rhode Island? Our guest this week on Newsmakers, Rhode Island Senate Minority Leader Jessica de la Cruz.
Of the state government.
Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White alongside 12 News politics editor Ted Nesi. On the second half, we have a reporters roundtable breaking down the first congressional race and the signature scandal that is rocking that race right now. But our guest on the first half is Senate Minority Leader Jessica de la Cruz. Thanks for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having me.
That's where I want to start. It's obviously a lot to talk about, but it's been the big headline for the past couple of weeks is that signature scandal that has impacted, to say the least, the Sabina Matos campaign for Congress. As a state senator, you have to submit 100 validated signatures, a congressional candidate 500, but you know the process. And first, I'm just sort of curious on your reaction to what has been uncovered so far in this ordeal. And do you think anything about the nomination paper process needs to change?
Well, I think that the process has been tainted. Not the process, but really the actions that we've seen by the Matos campaign. I submit signatures all the time, and there are going to be signatures that are invalid for whatever reason, because the signature doesn't match, or because someone in the neighboring community signed. They were very, supportive, but unfortunately, they don't live in my district. So that does happen. It's not unusual. But when you submit an entire sheet of 17 signatures and only one is valid, and
that's a red flag.
And one of them has been dead for 20 years. It's a huge red flag.
Mm-hmm.
One of the comments that Sabina Matos made was, democracy is under attack. And I would say, well, if democracy is under attack, it's because you're submitting fraudulent signatures, not because you were caught. The act is, it just tarnishes the institution.
There's been some talk, particularly from the Secretary of State, about changing that process, lengthening the amount of time, depending on the election cycle. It's 10 or 11 days to gather the signatures, so there isn't this grand rush to do that. Also, if a nomination paper is flagged, in this case in Jamestown, they would be required to call other cities and towns and say, hey, look out for the nomination paper submitted by so-and-so. These would need legislative support, obviously. Is that something you'd be open to voting for?
I think that the Board of Canvassers already do a good job, and we see that because Jamestown flagged it, East Providence flagged it.
Yeah, but validated signatures made it through. We found them. I was in Newport, and they squeaked through.
It's true. Some do squeak through, but I don't think that that fraud is rampant. I don't think that most candidates would do such a thing. When you do gather signatures, there are going to be signatures that aren't going to qualify for whatever reason, because the signature isn't identical, because someone moved, or whatever it is. But when you do have a candidate that submits an entire sheet, then I would say yes, the Board of Canvassers should probably alert the other 38 cities and towns. As far as the 11 days, I don't think that I think it's sufficient. What I do in my community is Burrillville has a signature signing party, Gloucester has one, North Smithfield has one. So we're able to gather signatures that way. But also, as a candidate, I have a list of voters. I go knock on their door and I introduce myself again. I'm your senator. I'm running for re-election. Would you sign my nomination papers? You're killing two birds with one stone. Mm-hmm. You're getting to meet the constituent, and you're asking them to sign your signature. To sign their signature on nomination paper.
More broadly, Leader, we know that there is, I would say, more skepticism among rank-and-file Republicans about election integrity, which I think even predates what happened with Donald Trump in 2020. And certainly I've seen it since this unfolded in my Twitter replies and emails we've gotten from viewers. And not to say it's just Republicans, but certainly I hear it a lot from Republicans. As a Republican leader in Rhode Island, how confident are you in the overall integrity of Rhode Island's voting system? Not just signatures, all the way through, of course, mail ballots.
I have faith in the system. If I didn't have faith in the system, then I wouldn't give the time that I do to running for office, because if the system is rigged, why do I even try? So I do have faith in the system. But when we do see that there are areas that can be improved, certainly then we should. But we should also maintain the laws that we have now. Like we saw Let Rhode Island Vote just passed. You know, now we don't need a notary or a witness.
On mail ballots.
On mail ballots, exactly. Thank you. And, you know, I wasn't supportive of that, but certainly there were other measures in the bill that I thought were prudent and making it easier for those with disabilities to vote. But, and I would remind viewers that these rules were put in place by a Democrat-led legislature, and they have been in place and they have worked, including voter ID. You know, some people think that that's prohibits people from voting. I don't think so at all. And as you can see with this fraudulent activity, we need to ensure that we need voters to have the confidence that our elections are secure, and I do believe that they are.
We're talking about the first congressional race. You, leader, considered running as a Republican in that for Congress. Ultimately, you decided not to. How come?
Oh, I did put out a statement, and
that's okay. People might not have read it, so we're asking you here.
It was a great opportunity, and I had so many people reach out to me and ask me to run, and so I felt like I should at least explore the run. But ultimately, my heart is in the Senate, and I feel like there's so much to do. And I was just recently elected as minority leader, and what I'd like to see is the Senate grow. And you know, do I think that we're going to have you know, a split Senate, half Republican, half Democrat? No, but can we increase our numbers? Yes, but it's going to take time. I look at, I think it's West Virginia. Used to be a deep blue state, now it's a red state. Do I think that Rhode Island is going to turn into a deep red state? No, but can we move it towards purple? Yeah, absolutely. I do have faith in that. I do believe that. You
are a political realist in my experience, Senator, and so I also have to ask, did you just look also at the 1st District? This is pretty inhospitable territory overall for a Republican in a November federal election.
It's definitely a tough district. There's no doubt about that. And I think that the national GOP says that it's like the 4th most bluest of districts, like in the nation. So we know that it's a difficult district. It doesn't mean that it's impossible. I don't believe in impossible. And we looked to New Jersey. There was a truck driver who unseated the Senate president. It is possible. I'm not saying that it's always probable, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't try, because we should. And I think this is a great opportunity for Jerry Leonard, who's running as a Republican, to put his name on the ballot. It's a special election, so there are different rules to play by politically. I mean,
and lower turnout.
And lower turnout. That's what I mean. It's a great shot for a Republican. And the reason why I like Jerry is, and I met him. I was able to speak to him at length. We
should tell folks he's a first-time candidate, for Marine Corps veteran. He was, I think, a colonel when he finished up out of Jamestown.
Kind of like myself, a political newcomer. He saw a need and decided to put his name on the ballot. I respect that. A man of integrity, military service. He knows a lot about national security. I think that's a big issue for Americans, national security, the national debt. And so he has, I think, a unique perspective that would serve Rhode Islanders. And again, integrity. When we talk to voters, when you talk to them, when I talk to them, they're not really happy with the legislature. They don't really have a high level of trust. Certainly the same thing with Congress. And wouldn't it be great to send someone that we could trust, that we know has integrity, who isn't going to play victim, woe is me. I think he's the right guy.
Let's pivot local here. We have about 5 minutes left in the segment. And I was just curious, if you were given the opportunity to pass one bill, they said, okay, leader, you can pass this bill. What would it be? What would you choose?
Oh gosh, the possibilities
are
endless.
Your favorite one.
My favorite one. Well, I'll point to the two that I was able to get passed. So Zambarano was in the budget last year, $100 million to save the hospital, to do the right thing by Rhode Islanders. I was not on my own. It was through a coalition of people, including families, nurses, even the buildings trades. Whoever was going to help, push that mission along, I wanted them on my team.
But of the bills that you didn't get passed, which one would you like to see most?
Any of them. You could, Donnie Ruggiero says
school choice.
Okay.
Why?
Yeah, because Rhode Island ranks one of the worst in the nation. If we were Massachusetts school district, we'd be in the bottom 10%. We spend per capita one of the most in the country. And what do we get? Return on investment. We have school districts that have 1%, 2%, 3% proficiency in math and reading. So I don't think throwing money at the problem is going to solve it. I think we need to fund the student and not the system. Funding the system isn't working, so let's fund the student, give them the funds. And I'm not saying that all public schools are failing, because they're not. I'm a product of public schools.
Well, and I think Rhode Island's middle of the road actually nationally, but it does get overshadowed by Massachusetts. So when you say school choice, you mean like a voucher program?
Yeah, definitely. Because not every student, I have 3 kids and they're all very different. And I think some students do great in public school, but some would benefit from going to a private school or a charter school or have homeschooling options. I think that should be up to the family. The families know best what's best for their children. They know them better than any teacher or any administration. And so I think that's the path to success. And here's the thing, too, is like when I think of Central Falls, they've been under state direction for now 30 years. Have we seen any improvement in Central Falls? We haven't, right? So do we continue on with this system that's broken, or do we try something new? I think it's time to try something new.
There was an interesting split between the 2 Republican leaders at the end of the session. House Leader Chippendale gave a pretty fulsome speech about why he was supporting the budget that Speaker Shekarchi put together. He said basically, of course, this isn't a Republican budget, but for a budget the Democrats put together, I think there's a lot in here that's good, and I'm going to vote for it. When it got over to the Senate, you voted no. You didn't feel the same way. I'm just curious, I'm sure you listened to Leader Chippendale's argument. Why did you feel differently in the end about the budget?
Yeah, well, just because we're in the same party doesn't mean that we are always going to agree on any piece of legislation, including the budget. We share a constituency, pretty large, in fact, and he made his decision based on the information at hand. I came to a different conclusion. I think the budget is bloated. I think that we should have done some bold tax reform. We don't get many opportunities to give back to Rhode Islanders, back some of their tax dollars. So could we have given them back a rebate? Sure. Or could we have lowered the sales tax? That would have helped so many Rhode Islanders. I think we just missed a really good opportunity to save Rhode Islanders money.
Your Senate colleague, Democrat Josh Miller, admitted to keying a car, and in some ways worse, he was caught on body-worn camera video lying to police officers about it. Senate President Dominic Ruggiero has declined to take any action against Miller, like removing him from committee assignments or something. What do you think should happen here?
Simply put, he's tarnished the institution. And I'm so disappointed because he's a colleague and I don't dislike him. I work with him. I think we've had great interactions about legislation, and he's always been respectful to me. So it pains me to say it because he's a colleague, but I do think at the very least Senator Miller should step down from his chairmanship, because here's the thing. You had mentioned he's a medium-sized politician. I don't think so. I think he's a leader. He's the chairman of that committee. The other Democrat senators look to him for guidance, for leadership, and I think he needs to take some time away from that position. He needs to think about what he did, really. The crime was the crime. You vandalized property, but the cover-up, I feel, was so much worse. I feel bad for the individuals. He made disparaging remarks, said that they were some gun nuts or that they were crazy. And then he only admitted once he was confronted with video evidence. So I don't think any of us are beyond accountability. And I have talked to the Senate President about it. He knows how I feel. But it is ultimately his decision. 30
seconds left because we're up against a break. If a Republican had keyed a car, Republican senator, do you think that person would be treated the same way?
That's the question I ask myself. Well, how would I react? How would I expect others to react? And when I talk to Rhode Islanders, most of them don't even aren't paying attention right now because it's summer. But when I explain that this actually happened, they are floored. And when I ask, what do you think should happen? They either say he should step down from office or he needs to be removed from committee. So again, it pains me to say it. He is a colleague, and I have worked very well with him in the past, but I think at the very least, he needs to step down from chairmanship.
Well, at least you know she reads your column, Ted.
I think I said it on Newsmakers.
Oh, okay. Well, you watch this. Well, Senate Minority Leader Jessica De La Cruz, thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
When we come back, a political roundtable breaking down the signature scandal in the first congressional race. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. This is Ted Nesi. We're joined by 12 News political analyst Joe Fleming, and we welcome Antonia Noori Farzan. She is a reporter for the Providence Journal. All right, Joe, every time we've talked about the first congressional race in a political roundtable, we talk about how sleepy it is. Well, it is sleepy no more, thanks to a signature scandal. And it's sort of thrust the race into the public's eye, right?
Yes.
What's your takeaway from all
Well,
that?
I think people now are focusing in more on the race. I mean,
For better or worse.
For better or worse. Not something the lieutenant governor would want, but people are now starting to pay attention, wanting to see who the candidates are. The lieutenant governor was the perceived front runner. There's been no public polling, but this definitely could have an impact on our campaign. And the thing to keep in mind is we said in the past that, in a normal year, that might cost maybe 500 or 1,000 votes. When there's a big turnout, not a big deal. But we're talking about a small turnout. You lose 500 or 1,000 votes, that could have a big impact. But more important, what I believe is simply, she has a lot of support from special interest groups who do independent expenditures. Will they cut back on the amount of money they're spending right now if they think she's in trouble? They probably won't say that publicly, but if they're going to spend 100,000, they might only spend 50,000 now. So I think she has a lot of things she has to overcome. I think she's on the air now. I don't know if that's when they planned to, but I think she has to try to build some momentum to keep her campaign moving.
So we have a couple of elements here, right? We have the politics of it and the fallout for the politics, and we have the policy side of it. And that's what I want to talk to you about, Antonia. The Board of Elections says, hey, look, the system here worked. The local canvassers caught bad signatures, but as I said on the first half with the Senate Minority Leader, that's not true. We found people doing our shoe leather reporting in Newport and elsewhere who said the signatures on the paperwork it's not theirs. So is there a problem with the system?
Yeah, I think the big unanswered question for me at this point is why no one is investigating on the state level. You guys have been investigating. You found the bad signatures and stuff, but why is no one in government stepping up and figuring out what the scale of that was? What was the extent? We don't know that. And I think because of that, it's pretty hard to just accept when they say you should trust the system, that it worked here. I mean, we do know that hundreds of bad signatures were thrown out, and that part worked, but how many others got through? We don't have any ideas, and I feel like that makes it really hard. Also for the lieutenant governor.
Wouldn't she want it to be sorted out?
You would think, yeah, because right now there's a question mark hanging over, did she actually get 500 signatures that would stand up to scrutiny? I mean, certainly her campaign says she did, but
They would,
yeah. We haven't gotten any public confirmation of that from an outside third party, from the people who are in charge of counting this.
Yeah, I think what's interesting of this on the politics side is, as Joe said, clearly, even Sabina Matos' own campaign, they make no bones about it privately. Like, yeah, this was not what we drew up in the playbook to have a 2 weeks now scandal about our signatures, even if they argue they were victims of this person who got the bad signatures. But, Sabina Matos is clearly not getting out of the race. They're putting $100,000 on television in just the first 2 weeks here to try to get a positive message about her out to the voters.
Do you think she went on the air early, as Joe sort of
She
suggested?
did. Her first day was not early. That had been planned, I know, because they'd announced that earlier, that she would go on this week. Okay. But they made a big play of, we're doing $100,000 just in the next 2 weeks. I do wonder if they advanced some of that money, and I don't know if it's for sure, but certainly they are trying to make a big statement up front, and I'm sure, frankly, we see on newscasts where there'll be a report on Channel 12, or I guess I've heard there are other television stations in town. They'll do a story on the signatures, and then a Sabina Matos ad pops up with her saying, vote for me, to try to get something positive out there. My question is, if Matos stays in the race but weakened, does that give a lane to Aaron Regenberg now, who is running clearly as a progressive? He's very differentiated from the other candidates. He got the Bernie Sanders endorsement this week. If the other sort of more establishment-y, normie Democrats split the vote, he can have a lot of people vote against him and still win with like 20% if the others are all splitting the rest of the vote.
Who does it benefit?
I think it benefits him somewhat for the simple reason he's not going to pick up any of her votes. But what we don't know is how many progressives there are who are going to actually come out and vote. He seems to have a pretty good lock on those. If there's 10,000 of those, that could put him over the top. What she loses, I think, will be divided up among the other candidates. So we're going to have to see what happens there. No one really knows, again, because there's no polling on this race.
Right. Well, and Antonia, a race like this, all races, not just this one, people really don't plug in until the very end. And there will be a good chunk of voters who sit down on their phone or on their computer right before the election and they Google a name. And when they Google Sabina Matos, this is going to come up. So this affects sort of the not so well-informed voter at this point, right?
Oh yeah, and I mean, people who just scroll through, just see the headlines, maybe don't click, don't read the whole thing, that's going to be potentially the only thing they know about her is the word signature scandal, which is not what you want as a candidate. So yeah, I think that's definitely an issue. I guess the question for me as well is, you know, where do all those voters go? Is there a clear candidate? So we haven't really seen anyone step up and really take advantage of this. You know, we did have one candidate who tried to file a challenge but didn't successfully, right? Yeah. And then we had another candidate who kind of gave a press conference outside the Board of Elections but didn't file a challenge. So no one has really fully taken advantage of this.
Well, let's talk about that here because we wrote about that this week. You've looked into it. The Board of Elections didn't take up the challenge. I think whoever it was from the Carlson campaign didn't show up. And so they were like, okay, well, we're not going to take up this challenge. But can't the Board of Elections do this independently on their own?
I have been asking the Board of Elections that question, and I have not got an answer on whether they believe they have the power, and if they believe they don't, if they believe that they do have that power, why didn't they do this? I mean, there is some debate among people who follow elections about whether or not that is something they have the authority to do in the absence of a successful challenge from a candidate.
Yeah, two authorities and all this. Judge Steve Erickson, who was on the Board of Elections, is a very vocal person on Twitter.
Yes.
Has insisted they are doing this the right way without a challenge. They shouldn't be looking into the signatures in a more proactive way. Common Cause's John Marion, who knows the Board of Elections very well, disagrees and says they absolutely have the statutory authority and, in his eyes, had a responsibility to, as Antonia said, kind of clear the air, make clear. Again, as far as I know, the other campaigns generally think she probably has 500 valid signatures. She turned in 1,300. A ton of them were rejected, but you could still have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rejected signatures and have the 500. But as Antonia said, there's just no official person has said, we went through them again, there are 500, let's move past this, and and then the criminal investigation can continue.
Well, but that's the to me that's the thing. Of course, the Matos campaign wants to move beyond this, and probably some of the public. But there is an ongoing Attorney General criminal investigation in this. And Joe, the timing of Peter Nerona's findings. Is that before September 5th, or is it after, is so critical?
It could be before September 5th. I mean, they have signatures they're concerned with already. They have signatures of dead people. So, I mean, I would think he could probably do this pretty fast. But again, sometimes the legal process moves very slowly.
Yeah.
So we don't know what's exactly going to happen. But if it comes out before September 5th, again, it could hurt the Lieutenant Governor's campaign
either
even
way,
more.
even if no one is charged, but it brings that story back up again.
Look at Hillary Clinton in the emails. I mean, part of her problem was she never went to jail or anything for the emails. It was just it kept coming up and then came up again.
And I would assume the other candidates are going to bring this up at some point, especially if they think she has momentum again. They want to knock her down.
Well, and you see now, you're seeing more and more a clear differentiation. You have these central four candidates, Matos, Regenberg, Amo, Carlson. They're all going to be on TV by next week when Don Carlson joins the other three. And that's not to write off, Sandra Cano, who's working hard in Blackstone Valley, has some union support, John Goncalves, Ana Quezada, the others. But, if you can't get on TV, the bar for you to win that race without being able to do that big paid media and then match it with voter contact and everything, it's just very hard, even in a low turnout race. And so I think the question now is what happens with those big four? Is there some way someone else can kind of break into that top tier? And among those four, with what's going on with the Matos campaign, Regenberg's doing his own thing. Are Amo and Carlson getting any traction? And again, without polling, we don't know.
Right. Do you think they look? The campaigns have tried to leverage this by holding press conferences and press releases. Do we see them go negative on the air with this one? There's a limited amount of money for these campaigns.
The problem you have with going negative in a campaign like this with 12 candidates is you might knock somebody down, but you may not get the votes. It may go to a third candidate.
And you might look like a jerk.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you decide who to attack?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think they may hold back. I mean,
everyone wants the other person to do it.
Regenberg's votes aren't going anywhere. He has a progressive vote. They're staying with him no matter what you do. So, I mean, it's going to be very difficult for these candidates. I think the first indication we'll get maybe around August 16th when we know how many mail ballots were applied for.
Yeah.
That'll give us an idea. If it's a small number, that means we're going to have a very small turnout more than likely.
I want to see how much outside money comes in for the individual candidates. Sabina Matos' whole playbook is based on Emily's List, Latino Victory Fund, Bold Pack, all these outside groups spending some really significant dollars in Rhode Island because she's fifth in cash on hand. To her credit, Sandra Cano is fourth, even though she hasn't said anything about going on TV yet. So they are really depending on these outside groups to make up for that. The Matos campaign, Are those groups as committed as they were before the signature scandal, or are they saying, is this the bet we thought it was? And again, we don't know. They could just come in next week, but we don't know.
We have 1 minute left, so Antonia, I want to use this time for you and I to complain. Both you and I asked for documents from Jamestown, and we got back a ridiculous. Well, why don't you describe what we got back?
The signatures redacted of dead voters. Now, keep in mind this petition.
No privacy interest when you're dead.
That was what they cited, was privacy interest for this. To be clear, these are voters who died, 2012, 17. They clearly did not sign this paper this past month. There's no way that is their signature. So we filed an appeal with the Attorney General. Not that we necessarily need these signatures, but just on the principle of it, because that's insane.
Yeah, and it's also documents that you can walk into town hall and ask for this very reason, so you can check, is this signature.
I think they were part of the canvasser's agenda
It was a meeting packet. Yes.
There's no questions of public record.
When people wonder why we complain about public records on TV all the time, this is why, because reporters are just tear their hair out. It wastes everyone's time.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be a Newsmakers if we didn't talk about public records, because I host the show and I'm obsessed with it. All right, we got to go. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the program. If you missed it, it's online. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.